everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski are taking a look at one of the four stakes races carded at Aqueduct on Saturday. Race 7 is the Key Scent Stakes for the New York bred 2-year-old fillies. And Craig, we've got a fairly competitive field of 8 runners signed on here. I would imagine the number 3, Caras Time, might go favored, even though she's going out for some lower profile connections, because she's run really well in her last couple of starts against Stakes Company, but she's going to have to cut back to the 6 furlongs here.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm glad you were making the morning line for this one and not me, because I wasn't sure who you were going to make the favorite. Caras Time is probably where I would have landed. She's been running well, but I don't think she's an overwhelming favorite by any means.
Definitely has some things to prove on the cutback and distance, because she is a horse who wants to be forwardly placed, really leading in the early stages of her races, but there does appear to be more speed signed on here than she's encountered in her last couple of starts. So let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race, and I think it's illustrated with this fast pace flag showing up, Craig, and horses like the number 6 Solo Shot, who might be even quicker than Caras Time, and even recent debut winner Ashburn Alley, they're likely to go forward. So I could certainly see this pace heating up.
I agree with the pace projector in here. All three of those horses we have shown in the front just have a whole bunch of ones in the early parts of the running line. So something's going to have to give here, and I'm expecting the pace to be pretty quick.
Let's take a look at this field in post position order, beginning with the number 1, My Shady Lady. You notice that she was the horse on the pace projector who had the LP flag, indicating that she has the highest Timeform US late pace rating in this field. She's not exactly a deep closer, but she can pass horses, which I think is something that could be an asset in this Key Scent Stakes. She ran well on debut, hasn't really built on that performance in 2 subsequent starts against Stakes Company, Craig, but she was facing a pretty tough field in that Seeking the Ante. Caldwell Loves Gold looked like a really promising horse at that point in time. And then last time out was just chasing Caras Time over a track that was fairly speed favoring.
Yeah, speed favoring and sloppy, and she was also up close to the early pace. I suspect they're going to revert to coming more from off the pace as they did in her debut, as being up close didn't really work out too well. So could get a nice trip from the rail.
I agree with that. They're taking the blinkers off this time, so I would not be surprised to see a slightly different running style than we saw in the last race from My Shady Lady. The number 2 is Alley's Song. We'll take a look at her debut victory. This was a $30,000 maiden claiming race for the New York bred, so she's really stepping up in class here. This race was dominated by a couple of debut runners, her included, as she draws away from the field at the end and is able to just wear down this leader in the final eighth of a mile. She's going out for a powerful stable in Brad Cox. He has very good statistics of horses coming off debut victories like this, Craig, but most of those were not coming out of maiden claiming races, stepping into Stakes Company.
A little tough for me to latch on to this one. Her 77 speed figure is not very good in this field. It's not totally out of possibility. She could improve 10 or 15 points, but the fact she was entered in a maiden claimer kind of has me a little soured on her. Seems like maybe she surprised even the connections and they're taking a shot, but this looks very tough.
The number 3 is Caras Time. Let's take a look at her most recent race when she was second going a mile in the Maid of the Mist. And even though she lost this race, Craig, I think she has validated that she's really taken a step forward in the fall. She was a big upset winner of the Joseph A. Jimma 2-back, winning at 22-1. Looked like she got a favorable track that day, a speed favoring sloppy surface that she really relished. Again, was over a sealed racetrack this last time, though this track was actually labeled fast, but at least she did run well once again, even though she lost to My Main Squeeze that day, coming in with some respectable speed figures. But you see those blue color-coded pace figures last time. I don't think she's going to encounter as soft a pace in this race.
No, particularly on the turn back. And looking at that, it just makes you think she's a sprinter. She had no reason to give it up last time if she could handle the mile distance. So I agree with the turn back to 6 furlongs makes perfect sense. My big concern is that her really nice speed figure came over that sloppy, somewhat speed favoring track that you talked about. So she's not one I would want to take a short price on when she's going to face some early speed in here.
The number 4 is Brown Sugar Babe, who just seems like a real long shot in this race. She did win her second start at Charlestown, but did so with a much slower speed figure than is going to be required to have success here. So she just seems like an outsider.
Yeah, it seems like a very deep spot to be entered in here. She's not for me.
Next up, let's take a look at the replay of Tricky Temper's Matron Stakes 2 back when she was second. Check her out on the rail. She's the horse with the red silks and the blue cap. She gets in really tight right about there. And even if you go back further on the turn, she was really getting bumped a few times by the horse to her outside. Kind of a rough trip and difficult situation for a 2-year-old to overcome, but she still comes through a tight spot along the inside to close fairly well for second behind Jody's Pride, who came back and finished a very strong second at a big price in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. So she kept very good company on this day, Craig. The turf experiment last time didn't work out, but she's getting back on the right surface here.
That was a much tougher race on the turf, as you can see by the race ratings. Even in defeat, she ran a better speed figure than she had on dirt. She had some trouble, as you note, and almost impossible not to notice the jockey upgrade that we're getting here. No offense to Katie Davis, but Irad Ortiz is the best rider on the circuit.
Yeah, definitely a big step up to Irad Ortiz, but that could also make her take a hit in the wagering as well, as she's been big prices in her last couple of starts. The number 6 is Solo Shot. Let's take a look at her last race at Finger Lakes when she was the winner of the Lady Finger, keeping her undefeated record intact, now 2 for 2 so far. She's won both of her races in similar style, Craig, getting clear on the front end and just never letting anybody catch her. She's going to face more pressure here, or at least she's supposed to, with the likes of Caras Time and Ashburn Alley in this race. And she's also stepping up to face a tougher field than she met last time.
She's a filly who has opened up easy leads in both of her races at Saratoga and Finger Lakes, hasn't really been challenged at any point. And despite that, her speed figures are still below several in this field. So she's not the kind of horse I want to bet on. When horses get trips like that, I want to see better speed figures.
Up next is the number 7, Ashburn Alley, another potential speed in this race. We'll take a look at her debut victory in October at Aqueduct. She wins over a sloppy sealed track this day, was heavily supported, especially going out for a barn like Kelly Breen that doesn't have the best statistics on debut. And you can see coming through the stretch here, she's a little green hanging on her left lead all the way to the wire. So obviously she still has some forward to go if she can change leads properly in this start. The good news is, Craig, she's drawn outside of the other speeds as now she makes her first start off a trainer switch to Tom Morley.
The post is definitely a benefit. You can see she was a little bit wide last time, pressing what was a pretty quick pace for the class. She was able to draw away. Her speed figure left a little something to be desired, but when I pull up the chart, the first 2 horses that have run back, the 4th and 5th place finishers, have both won their races with improved speed figures. One was on turf, but one was on dirt. So maybe that race was a little better than it looks on paper.
The number 8 is Unicorn Cake. She was beaten by Solo Shot 2 back in the Lady Finger. The pace of that race didn't really suit her, and she just kind of stayed on at one pace behind that winning rival. The last time stepped up against a tougher field of males in another stakes at Finger Lakes, could never really get involved in that race. I liked her debut where she closed and was able to pass horses, though she got a fast pace to close into that day. Maybe that's what she needs, but she does have to take a step forward here if she's going to be successful against this tougher field.
When I was first handicapping this race, I really wanted to like Unicorn Cake and pick her on top. But as I watched her races, it seems to me she's a horse who's likely to maybe pick up some pieces while not quite getting the win. Just a little bit lacking in the speed figure department, even when things go her way.
Well, let's throw up our picks for this Key Sense Stakes, and we're both fairly against that morning line favorite, the number 3, Caras Time. Craig, you're going for the number 5, Tricky Temper, and I've got no argument. Her last dirt race was good.
It was. This is a race rating. We only have an 87. She ran an 84 last time on dirt with a troubled trip, as you pointed out, gets a big rider upgrade. So I won't be surprised if this horse is able to run in the low to mid 90s, and that should be good enough to take this one.
And I'm just hoping the trip works out for the number 1, My Shady Lady. She was very close to the pace last time. Now they're taking the blinkers off. I think that she's going to come from off the pace in this spot. And she did show ability the last time that she was on a Harrow track, or the 2 times that she was on a Harrow track in her prior 2 starts. So the number 1, My Shady Lady for me, and the number 5, Tricky Temper for Craig in race 7 at Aqueduct, the Key Sense Stakes on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.